do you see the internet as being both? Is that more of a hopeful direction, or can you see it also exacerbating the problem?
No, I think it's more of a hopeful direction. The happy story I like to tell myself about the internet is someone in some tiny village up in Ontario or in Kenya or in Brazil somewhere who gets next to the internet and realizes, I can get out of this preposterous scene by simply, if I'm ambitious, if I just unleash my own ambition and the educational power of this, then I can go to the large city and conquer, go to the capital and export myself to somewhere else. And I assume this is happening because, you meet in the third world incredibly ambitious people who only by their circumstance are confined. Well, if you rearrange their circumstance, so if they want a degree in electrical engineering, all they have to do is be online night after night after night. That's pretty exciting.
So how do you see that changing the kind of the cultural matrix or the emerging global culture?
Well, hopefully it gives it a more international flavor, and people realize that there is I don't want to use words like a natural elite of native intelligence or something like that, but in fact there is something like that. I mean, smart people would be a fine thing to put them in charge for a while and see if that does any good. I mean, they're taking charge where the money is, but that's not a very deep value. What if they took charge where the power and the actual, the morphogenetic intent was coming from? The design process. This is what.
But do you see that happening? I mean, are you? I mean, if that's sort of your vision, you must be a little concerned about the evident power of money and pure greed to largely drive development rather than design principles with an eye towards the future and social equity and ecological improvement.
Yes, except to some degree, except that it is people who, Mao said or somebody said, to get rich is glorious. I'd say to get rich is modestly affirmable, something like that. There's no sin in getting rich, as long as what you're doing is not, making people into lampshades or something like that. It's better than a collectivist goal of some sort, it seems to me.
How do you feel about that conjunction of media manipulation, money, and celebrity that's so dominant now?
Well, you have to have something to sell. You have to have something people actually want. I mean, if you're selling the Rolling Stones, or you're selling Charles Manson, or you're selling something like that, you might get somewhere. But inherently, you can't sell that which is eternal, or it turns against itself. So, and that's what defeated fascism. Nobody wanted it. It was ugly, ultimately. It's probably what defeated socialism. Cinder block housing facilities, all this rhetoric about, I don't know, social planning ran off the cliff in the 20th century. Maybe because there were too many people, or too much money, or not enough money, that something defeated all these utopian visions of how people might have lived. That's what I'm hoping doesn't happen in the next 25 years.
What doesn't happen?
That some lack of resource or vision doesn't reveal that we can't give enough people a bearable life. So we have to live forward into an age of revolution, social turmoil, and struggle for resources. It doesn't have to be this way.
Do you see it going in that direction?
Toward that kind of a struggle? That's my concern, that people and institutions not respond to need, and then what you get is a have-not situation. I mean, you wouldn't want the first half of the 21st century to look like the first half of the 20th century, with the equivalent of a Bolshevik dialogue, the equivalent of whatever soft leftism turned out to mean and be, because it turned out to mean and be not bloody much, as far as I can tell. I mean, there was a lot of labor unrest, some amelioration of some people's dilemma in the system, but the world is far richer than it appears to be, and that wealth is not trickling down or flowing down or making nearly as many people's lives as good as it could be. So far, it doesn't seem to have gotten out of hand. I mean, most people, if you give them a lot of money, they buy second homes and collect art. Well, this is not exactly like hunting down Serbs with your shotgun or something. These entrepreneurial capitalists, this is what they're doing. I mean, they're building vast wealth downstream for their children. It's probably, sort of like the invention of very large and stable sailing vessels. Whenever that happened, 200 or 250 years ago, where suddenly a whole bunch of people realized, all we need is some money, not too much money. If we buy a ship and send it out to Indonesia and bring back a load of nutmeg, our children's children will never work again. We need one load of this shit. And they have to work, of course, and then they get a certain lifestyle and a certain amount of social respect out of it. But I think what they really get out of it is the satisfaction of knowing that they've secured for their heirs a comfortable existence unto the 9th generation or something.
Well, it's interesting about that because that ties in with the genetics. If you buy into some evolutionary psychology, certainly at this stage of the game, one of the forms that would take is not merely like the logic that guides how you choose a mate, and the fact that your status and money might, if you're a male, bring you a foxier, younger babe than the schmo who's, shoveling shit. That one form that would take would, of course, be to maintain your genetic line in as, great a situation as possible.
Well, and now people understand that this is what your genetic line is about, that to cope or to be in a Darwinian position of competition in this society means to have money, and not a little, not sufficient, but plenty, so that when you need to arrive and be met by Rolls-Royce limousines or whatever, that it's not an issue, and this all comes down.
But do you see that there's also kind of madness to that?
Yeah, I'm not motivated. I mean, as you see, I need a place to keep some books dry. Having achieved that, my motivation falls to pieces. And it's, all right, what else do we need to keep dry? Some firewood, okay, a truck, okay. That's about as far as I can go.